We don't have a youth group. We don't have a lot of children. We don't have a nativity scene this evening. And I know that's a disappointment to many. We love our nativity scenes. But in the spirit of a nativity scene, I have a reading this evening. A reading from a book, a recipe for a Merry Christmas. It was out of Catherine Labour's library that we find this. Let us hear what we might in this text this evening. The Old Testament said, "He made known his ways unto Moses, his acts unto the children of Israel." And we accept that statement as true. It is forced upon us by the sheer weight of the evidence. We are left with no explanation other than this: God at sundry times and in diverse manners spoke in times past unto the fathers and through the prophets. If we look a little more closely at the Old Testament, we shall find that the basic idea contained in Immanuel was not unknown to the writers of the sacred books. God with us is something that they earnestly believed, and we listen to their various writings as they said, "Certainly I, the Lord, will be with thee," or "The Lord thy God is with thee wherever thou should go," or "My presence shall go with you," or "In thy presence is fullness of joy." Yet all of these are inadequate and insufficient. There's something lacking. God in creation, God in providence, God in history, God in the conscience, God in the Old Testament. All this leaves us needy and still unsatisfied. We see the Lord dimly and indistinctly. We know there's something there, but we're not sure what. It's like a man half blind with cataracts peering into a mirror that's half broken. With nothing more, we would ever cry, "My soul thirsteth for God, for the living God." The Old Testament is the Bible of the Jew, and it closes with the book of Malachi, which means for the Jew, the revelation of God ends there. Our Bible does not end with Malachi. Indeed, the vital Christian message does not begin until we come to Bethlehem, to a lonely cattle stall. Immanuel, God with us. God has spoken unto us in a son, a helpless baby, in all poverty and filth and stench of a stable. Christmas, if it means anything at all, means the consecration of the commonplace. For what could be more common than a cradle, or more ordinary than a baby? Almost every house has a cradle, or has had one at one time. Christmas is a continual reminder that God in Christ has consecrated the commonplace things of life to confound those who are mighty. There is no human standard by which the importance of Bethlehem can be reckoned. Bethlehem is itself the standard by which the importance of all human activity must be judged. Bethlehem is a parable of the whole life of Jesus. He was born an outcast in a rough stable with the winds of God beating upon him. For years he earned a livelihood for himself and for the rest of his humble family to which he belonged by the taut muscles in his arms and the calloused hands as a manual worker. The day came when he whose dwelling had been heaven had nowhere to lay his head. A certain village once refused him a night's lodging. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. He was despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. He died an outcast, crucified on a hill outside a city wall, with the winds of God beating upon him. Everything in the life of Jesus fit into this one great design: the cradle and the cross, the manger and the ministry. All the many parts of his life tell us he came for one purpose, and that everything, his purpose was one. He was rich, and yet for our sakes he became poor, that we, through his poverty, might become rich. It is there as he stands before his frenzied parents in the temple when he was 12 years old. It's there as he places a meek child in the center of squabbling and jealous disciples. It is there as he feels into an empty pocket for tax money. It is there as he weeps over Jerusalem and as he rides a borrowed donkey for his triumphal entry. And it is there as he calmly tells a perplexed Roman governor that the power he thinks comes from Caesar actually comes from God. In his agony, he cries, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." It is there, from the poor manger to the bitter cross. Now the author speaks to us directly. Having eyes, we see not, and having ears, we hear not. We have come year after year to Bethlehem, and whether we are wise men, which is very unlikely, or whether we are simple shepherds, which is far more likely, we kneel at the manger. But what have we learned from our annual pilgrimages? We come year after year to Advent, year after year to Christmas Eve service. But what does it mean? What is there? The way Christ entered the world which he made, and the way he left this world, which had no room for him. And the whole pattern of his life revealed glory in humiliation, sovereignty in suffering, perfection through limitation, and victory through defeat. God is with us, Immanuel. And that leads me to a thought for our more youthful members in our assembly this evening. God with us. Good thing or a bad thing? You might say, how could it be a bad thing? But surely many people ignore this Lord, have no interest in him. Easy to ignore. He's invisible. They ignore him. Now, I hope God will forgive me for this next comment that I'm going to make. But in some ways, God is like the vice principal at school. Yeah, I hope he forgives me for that. If you're a straight runner, if you're not doing anything wrong, when you see the vice principal, that's probably a good thing. But if you're trying to create mischief, if you want to do what you want to do, you hope the vice principal can't be seen. If you can't see him, maybe he or she can't see you. Immanuel is with us. But does that give us comfort, or does that make us distraught? As for me, I'll tell you honestly, I used to get beat up quite a bit at school, so when I saw the vice principal, that was a good thing. I wanted to be where the vice principal could see me. He was my protector. He was my insurance that at this moment I was not going to get pummeled. If I could make it from his viewpoint to get on the bus to go home, it was a good day. Jesus is our Immanuel. He is with us. If we have a heart for him, we look for him and we will find him. And it will bring us joy and comfort. It will bring us peace. We will know his protection and his love. And that's our message for today. That God proposes to be with us. God makes himself available to us. But the choice is always ours, of whether or not we will seek his face or turn our back. I'm glad you're here with us, worshiping the Lord this evening.